Jake, there is something that I was kind of flipping around in my mind a little bit. And remember, at the beginning of this offseason, we talked about how I feel like there's a real need for the New Orleans Saints to prove that they are the competent franchise that they believe themselves to be outside of the Sean Payton and Drew Brees era, right? It's one of the reasons why I applauded the kind of trying to stay as competitive as possible while rebuilding. And I guess my question to you is, we'll run through these moves real quick. And I guess the question is, has Mickey Loomis accomplished that goal on paper, at least, right? Like things can always go awry, and ultimately all that matters are the actual results, right? And so maybe Jamal Williams comes and he falls off like super hard. Maybe getting Mike Thomas back ends up meaning nothing because Mike Thomas stays hurt and never plays, right? Like, there are a lot of very shrewd, very well done moves this offseason that could blow up. But if I'm being objective from where I sit right here, and I'm not just using the result, because these, you got to remember, like they are making these choices not being able to know the future. And so I'm going to try to judge them with the same amount of information. And man, from where I sit, I feel like Mickey Loomis has the Saints looking pretty competent, like the franchise that they view themselves to be. I mean, this was a franchise that was getting lambasted in a lot of Latin national media for how they handle the cap. What are they going to do? They're absolutely screwed. Even people that like work for like Spot Rack and like Over the Cap, which confused me because I thought that they should understand this better than anyone. And yet what did they do? It has held them back from nothing this offseason. They're very proactive as they go and sign Derek Carr to a big deal, who they, again, believe is going to be a large quarterback upgrade. Only time will tell. I have more on something Carr's very good at that New Orleans Off Football pointed out the other day. But it's not just a Derek Carr move, but that proved they were able to get in a big free agent contract. They lose David Onyemata and Shai Tuttle, and then what do they do the next day? They go get Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard on affordable deals. They had some safety depth with Lonnie Johnson Jr., Jonathan Abram. They needed a run. They had a huge need at running back. They maybe get one of the more exciting names on the running back, maybe the most exciting name on the running back free agency market in Jamal Williams. And maybe most impressively, they get Mike Thomas, Andrus Peat, and Jameis Winston to re-sign and take pay cuts. And Loomis talked about it at the meetings yesterday. You know, he doesn't like strong-arming people. He doesn't want to. And basically how they handle it, they say, look, man, here's what we can do. We want you to go test your market, you know, talk to your agent, have them talk to other teams, see what they're hearing, we'll see if we can match. And basically, look, we want what is best for you. And so let's see if we can, if what's best for you is also best for us. And in these three cases, you're talking about two starters and a quality backup, which is needed, as the Saints haven't had a quarterback play an entire season since when? It's probably been a few years now at this point. We took it for granted.
You know, yeah, I was about to say complete opposite of what you had for a decade plus. But.
Yeah. So getting it back, a starter in Pete, who, regardless of how you feel about Pete, he took the pay cut, right? A starter, Mike Thomas, who has the potential to be like all pro. Now, we'll see. Even Allen saying yesterday he's not fully healthy. And then they even get Winston back to be that quality backup. I feel like the Saints going into the draft, do they still have needs? Absolutely. D-line, running back if they want, like tight end, sure, right? But even the signing of Foster Moreau would have been perfect for that tight end position. So I got to say, man, I think Mickey Loomis and this front office has done a very admirable job this offseason.
No, they definitely had holes that they had to fill. The quarterback was probably going to be the most important because of the way last year played out, and you went and you got a guy that you truly believe in. There's been a lot of quarterback movement in the NFL offseason, and you were one of the first teams to get that started. So you had a guy that you liked. You went out there and you got him. So the Saints realized that they had to get that piece probably done first. And so after you get that done, okay, what do? You lose defensive tackles. Like you mentioned, you replace those guys. And that also allows you to be creative in the draft, because if you didn't sign those two defensive tackles, you were without a question going to have to go defensive tackle in the first round. They still might.
Yeah.
You know, Nick said yesterday they're still looking at that position. I think now, though, you can go 40. You don't have to go 29. You can go 40
if you
with
want
that
to.
Defensive tackle because of the two guys that you signed. Like Mozzie Smith from Michigan is somebody that will be out there if you want to get him at 40. And now you can do something different. I know some mock drafts had them going Michael Mayer from Notre Dame tight end. Okay, if you want to go that route, he is somebody obviously that is a really good receiver. Not quite sure where he would stack up in NFL blocking tight end, but you have guys that can try to do that. You did sign Juwan back, so you do have a pass catching tight end. So even that pick seems like, okay, maybe you have a little bit of a luxury pick. Not saying that you can't go get a guy that can be a starter, but you don't have to be fit into one box. You can only take this position.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe you can, look at 3 or 4 positions with that 29th overall pick. So that's what they've done in free agency. Running back. Now you can probably slot that down a couple of rounds in the draft as well. If you don't sign Jamal Williams, 2nd round, 3rd round, where do you go? Running back. You needed one. Yep. You had to have one because, Alvin Kamara, you don't really know that situation, and you needed a backup running back. Obviously, that cost you a couple times last year, and Jamal Williams is going to be a major upgrade, in my opinion, over Mark Ingram at that point in his career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, 17 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, and in my opinion, you got him on a great deal. Running backs don't get huge deals, but still, I feel like it was a good deal for the New Orleans Saints. And so right now, when you look at the deficiencies that they had at the end of last year, you do feel good about what they've done so far in the offseason. Now you get a final grade after the draft because the Saints sometimes can make the draft interesting in both ways.
Yeah.
We've seen them, trade up and a little bit of a head scratcher. We've seen them have a lot of value picks as well. I mean, we can sit here, we can list the 3rd rounders, the 4th rounders, the 5th rounders that have really done major things for the New Orleans Saints. So I'll give my final grade after the draft, but I think what you've done in free agency has allowed you to now be way more creative in that draft than you were before free agency.
Yeah, for what it's worth, this came out earlier this year from Pro Football Focus analyst Arjun Menon, and and it's not even close, Jake. If you look at this chart, I should have remembered to put this in the document. I saw this a few weeks back, but no team has lost more in draft day trade value has lost more value than has Mickey Loomis. So that is one thing that, as I sit here and applaud the front office, that is one thing that I kind of wish would almost change, would be the just complete willingness to give up all value on draft day to find your guy, because even if a guy's your guy, I think the draft is so fraught with peril that I would rather, just amass as many picks as possible and try to diversify that risk and investment a bit. But again, otherwise, I feel like it's been excellently managed. The offseason has. Getting under the cap and signing all the players and all the breakdown that Jake just gave you as well. And
I will say this, though, about free agency and about the draft coming up, and completely different conversation than we started free agency with.
Yeah.
The NFC South has made some big moves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the New Orleans Saints. I mean, Carolina has made what I think is moves that are going to make them very difficult. Atlanta continues to spend money. Calais Campbell just signed with the Falcons, I believe, yesterday.
Oh, okay.
They continue to get veteran guys. I mean, they got Bates at safety, so they're spending money.
And they announced Desmond Ridder as the starter officially yesterday.
I think because of the Lamar Jackson stuff. They wanted to get out in front of it, let Desmond Ridder know that this is his team. They're not going to pursue him.
So my question is, why is it Desmond Ridder's team? Do they actually believe in him? Like, do you think that they actually believe in him more than we do and they really saw good stuff? Or is this a pseudo tank? We don't want Lamar because we have our eyes on one of the big 3 next year.
I don't think the tape was bad. I mean, I think there's things there that can get you excited. Now, how long do you give him the starting quarterback job? That I don't know. Like, how invested are you going to be in him? You don't have a big investment in him now. He's only a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
So there's not a huge contract. I mean, it's a league minimum contract that he's on right now, and maybe you saw enough there where you're like, hey, we're saving some money here. We can put this money elsewhere because they have. I mean, they've signed big free agents, and so for them, they did see something because you don't tank like we've seen in the past when you name a guy quarterback, you're like, that guy's not an NFL quarterback, and then make the moves that you've made.
Yeah, I guess
like you don't sign Calais Campbell, who's feels like he's my age. He has to be close.
You're not selling him on coming down to join your team.
Well, you're not selling him on that, and you're not spending that money on a guy that age.
Yeah,
right. You went and spent the most money on a safety, so you're spending the money to compete now. So they believe in Desmond Ridder, right, wrong, or indifferent. If we don't, they do. as a franchise. And so they're making those moves. Carolina, they feel like they're signing the guy every single day as well.
Yeah.
Like Tampa's probably been the most quiet of the entire division.
Tampa's kind of honestly doing you're right. Tampa's actually closer to doing the real tank thing. If we look, they're cutting all their old men, like all the old men, all the big contracts. They're in a post-Brady era. They got the Super Bowl. They've announced Kyle Trask as the starter. It would make a lot of sense that Tampa would be doing kind of the pseudo tank as they look to find especially because Jake, when you have a Lombardi trophy that recently, you have the you have like the buffer zone or the build up to where you can kind of take an awful year if it means getting Caleb Williams, Penix, or Drake May at the end of it. So
I mean, just think about like since the end of the season, what Tampa has lost. And now some of it's because they decided to lose it, but you lose Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You fire Byron Leftwich as your offensive coordinator, somebody that was head coaching interviews last offseason. You release Leonard Fournette, Cameron Brate, two vets, like you said. You trade Shaq Mason to Houston for more draft choices.
Yep.
So
Classic.
there's not a sign.
They got rid of Donovan Smith too, right?
Yeah, there's not a sign to me. Like the one signee that you've really made that's a veteran, Chase Edmonds, the running back to a 1-year contract. You Jamal Dean, I think they re-signed him, but that was really the only move that they've made. So Tampa's more in the category of what we thought maybe Carolina and Atlanta would be in, and Carolina feels like they're going for broke.
Yeah, I mean, well, once they trade up to go number 1 overall, that's your.
They trade up and then they're signing all these veteran players. They feel like they are close, and
they feel like
they weren't far off last year.
Yeah, 7-10. I mean,
that's why Wilksey was up for that job because of the way he took over.
So I mean, look, I think Frank Reich is a better coach than Josh McDaniel, but I mean, you do have to be worried a bit about a Bisaccia and McDaniel situation. I don't think that's going to happen again because I think that Reich is better, but
and I think Bisaccia is really deserving to be a head coach, and unless he just does not want to, which I don't know that that's the case, what are we doing? But that's a whole different conversation.
So we'll see, man. You're right, though. The NFC South changing pretty drastically, but I still applaud the way that these Saints have utilized this offseason. And I think, maybe because of Derek Carr, that they're still the betting favorite for the South today, or they should be. But the gap is narrowing.
Depending on what Carolina does at 1. Because you look at Carolina's offense, Miles Sanders starting running back now, Adam Thielen starting receiver, DJ Chark starting receiver, Terrence Marshall starting receiver, Hayden Hurst starting tight end. So they went and got some production for whoever their quarterback's going to be. He's got weapons now.
They were like, all right, let's get this guy weapons and let him grow into them over the next 2 to 3 years. And then, they're trying to do like a Joe Burrow peak type of deal, right? Where you year 1 may not be as dominant, but you can make a huge, massive jump in year number 2. Okay, I'll leave you with one good bit of positivity, Jake. How about some Derek Carr sunshine pump on the way out here? This comes from New Orleans.football, Nick Underhill's site with him and Tripp over there. There is one area of football, Jake, in which Derek Carr is among the best in the entire league. And that is throwing into tight windows, okay? There's maybe there's a few better in the entire NFL over the past 4 years when it comes to throwing these highly contested throws. Pro Football Focus gave him a score of 91.5. For reference, during the same period, Jake, Drew Brees was 78.6, Jameis Winston 76.4. Again, so 91.5 for Carr. Tom Brady 98. Sheesh. Aaron Rodgers 94, Burrow 94, but then like Mahomes 91, Allen 91. So as you can see, right, he's keeping some pretty elite company when it comes to the accuracy. And then if you combine that in the perfect sunshine pump world with a healthy Michael Thomas, who nearly has more contested catches than anybody since he's entered the league, even though he's only played, 10 games the last 3 seasons. If you can somehow get that healthy Michael Thomas, that would appear to be a perfect marriage between those two skill sets. And to be fair, you may actually need Michael Thomas because also one of the reasons why Carr was so good in that regard when he was in Oakland was he was throwing to Waller and Moreau and Devontae Adams, and then they were very good at making their quarterback right when he would take a shot with them. So here's to hoping that can continue for Carr and that you can get that healthy Thomas, although still not 100%, according to Allen, from the toe injury. So they don't have a timeline, but they expect him to be back by camp potentially. I mean, right? Like, that's crazy. That's very wild.
It is, and I know not all injuries are the same, and I know some of us are meatheads, and we don't maybe do the things that we're supposed to do with injuries, and maybe we pay for it later. Maybe that's just the way that it happens. I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way. It's just the way that I know, but it's a long time ago.
I know.
It's a long time ago.
I didn't love the quote. I didn't.
Very long time ago.
I'm choosing to stay positive because, why not? But it was a bit like, sheesh, come on.